Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the world of Up? Released on May 29, 2009, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. Pixar's Up opens not with action, but with one of the most emotionally resonant montages in animation history. We meet a young Carl Fredricksen, wide-eyed and full of dreams, idolizing the famous explorer Charles Muntz. That spirit of adventure connects him to Ellie, an equally enthusiastic child with a wild imagination. Their shared dream of exploring Paradise Falls becomes a thread that weaves through the entire narrative. But it's the time-lapse of their married life, told wordlessly through music and visuals, that hits home. The iconic Married Life score by Michael Giacchino accompanies a beautifully bittersweet montage that charts their journey from childhood dreams to adult realities. We see joy, heartbreak, aging, and ultimately, loss. It's a masterclass in storytelling, compressing decades into a few minutes while building a profound emotional foundation. From there, the story jumps to Carl in his twilight years. Now a grumpy old man, living alone in the same house he and Ellie shared. The world around him has changed. High-rises and construction have swallowed up his quiet neighborhood, symbolizing how Carl himself feels. Boxed in, displaced, forgotten. After a confrontation with a construction worker leads to a court order to move him to a retirement home, Carl hatches a wild plan. Tying thousands of balloons to his house, he lifts off into the sky, determined to fulfill his promise to Ellie, to take her to Paradise Falls. But Carl's adventure gets an unexpected twist when he discovers a stowaway, Russell, a well-meaning but overly talkative wilderness explorer who just wanted to earn his final badge for assisting the elderly. Their dynamic is both hilarious and touching. Carl, rigid and gruff, contrasts perfectly with Russell's youthful optimism. As they drift toward South America, their bond begins to form. Not easily, but naturally, as shared challenges force them to rely on one another. Once in the skies over Paradise Falls, things escalate. A violent storm knocks them off course, and they land on the wrong side of the falls. They decide to walk the house across the terrain, pulling it like a balloon float in a surreal, dreamlike trek through the jungle. Along the way, they meet the vibrant and goofy bird Russell names Kevin, who, despite appearances, turns out to be female. Then comes Doug, the golden retriever with a collar that translates his thoughts into speech. Doug is an instant fan favorite, loyal, simple, and unintentionally funny. His affection for Carl and Russell brings lightness to the journey. But the heart of the conflict lies with Charles Muntz, Carl's childhood hero. Once revered, Muntz was disgraced decades ago when scientists claimed the giant bird he discovered was fake. Now, he's obsessed with capturing Kevin to prove his discovery was real. At first, Carl is thrilled to meet his idol, but it quickly becomes clear that Muntz has become paranoid and ruthless, willing to kill to preserve his legacy. This is where the film pivots into deeper territory, exploring themes of hero worship, obsession, and the dangers of holding onto the past at all costs. As Carl clings to his memories of Ellie, he begins to lose sight of what she truly wanted for him. In trying to fulfill their dream, he forgets that life's real adventure wasn't the destination. It was the life they shared together. This realization crystallizes when Carl finally looks through Ellie's adventure book. What he thought was an empty promise at the back, pages left blank for all the adventures they never had, turns out to be filled with photos of their life together. And with a note, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one." It's this emotional pivot that defines Up. Carl lets go, literally and figuratively. He unloads his house, frees himself from the weight of the past, and chooses to live again. He goes back for Russell, who has been captured while trying to save Kevin. In a thrilling aerial climax involving blimps, dogs flying fighter planes, and mid-air battles, Carl proves he's not just running from the past. He's choosing to fight for the present. By the end, Carl is no longer the grumpy old man we met. He's adopted a new purpose, becoming a grandfather figure to Russell. And Russell? He gets his final badge. Not for assisting the elderly, but for the courage, compassion, and friendship he showed throughout the journey. Doug stays with them, loyal as ever, and the three form an unlikely but heartwarming new family. Every frame of Up is loaded with emotion, visual storytelling, and character depth. It's a film that teaches us that adventure doesn't always mean scaling cliffs or chasing legends. It can be in the quiet moments, the relationships we build, and the risks we take to grow. Visually, the film is stunning. From the balloon-powered house floating through pastel skies to the surreal, untouched jungles of Paradise Falls. The score, especially Married Life, elevates every scene, sometimes bringing tears without a single line of dialogue. And the voice acting, from Ed Asner's gruff yet vulnerable Carl to Jordan Nagai's earnest Russell, is pitch perfect. Up isn't just a film about loss or even about dreams. It's about rediscovery, about how letting go of the past can open the door to unexpected, beautiful new adventures. It's about how life doesn't end with heartbreak. It just changes shape. And sometimes, the greatest journey is finding the courage to move forward. On May 29, 2009, Pixar Animation Studios and Walt Disney Pictures released a movie that looked like a fun cartoon adventure at first glance, but surprised the world by delivering one of the most emotional and thoughtful stories in animation history. Up may appear to be just a children's film about a flying house, but the moment you sit down to watch it, you realize it's so much more. It's a film that touches your heart before it even gets to the adventure, and it doesn't let go until the very last moment. What makes Up truly extraordinary isn't just its colorful animation or quirky characters. It's the way it blends deep emotion, exciting storytelling, and unforgettable moments into something anyone, of any age, can connect with. It's not every day that a movie can make you laugh, cry, and reflect on your own life all at once, especially in less than 2 hours. That's the magic of Up. It's a movie that understands life, not just in its highs and lows, but in the quiet, ordinary moments that often mean the most. The story begins with a young boy named Carl Fredrickson, a shy kid who idolizes a famous explorer named Charles Muntz. Carl dreams of going on big adventures and discovering lost worlds. That dream leads him to meet Ellie, a fearless girl with the same passion for adventure. From the moment they speak, you know they're meant to be. They grow up together, fall in love, and build a life side by side in a cozy little house filled with memories, laughter, and plans for the future. But life doesn't always go the way we imagine. Dreams get delayed, plans change, and in one of the most emotional montages ever created in a movie, we watch Carl and Ellie's entire life together. Decades of love and struggle, without a single word. It's just music and images, but somehow, that's enough to bring tears to your eyes. And then suddenly Ellie is gone. Carl is alone, holding on to the house they built and the dreams they never got to chase. Fast forward to the present, Carl is now 78 years old. He's grumpy, tired, and set in his ways. The world around him has moved on, but he hasn't. His neighborhood has turned into a construction site, and everyone is trying to push him out of his home. But Carl has one final plan, a wild idea that no one could expect. He ties thousands of balloons to his house and lifts it into the sky, determined to fly to Paradise Falls, the place he and Ellie always dreamed of visiting. It's not just a journey for adventure. It's a mission to keep a promise, even if she's no longer with him. But Carl doesn't know he's not alone. A boy named Russell has accidentally ended up on the porch of Carl's flying house. Russell is a young wilderness explorer trying to earn his last badge, assisting the elderly, and he's full of energy, curiosity, and endless questions. The contrast between Carl's grumpy silence and Russell's cheerful chatter creates a perfect balance. Together, they crash land in South America, near the mysterious Paradise Falls. But the journey is just beginning. As Carl and Russell make their way through the jungle, pulling the floating house behind them, they meet a strange, colorful bird that Russell names Kevin. Kevin isn't just a fun animal sidekick. She's a rare creature being hunted by someone Carl once admired. That someone is Charles Muntz, the same explorer Carl looked up to as a child. But Muntz is no longer a hero. He's become obsessed, paranoid, and dangerous. He wants to capture Kevin at any cost, to prove he was right about her existence. And he'll stop at nothing to do it. They also meet Doug, a golden retriever with a special collar that allows him to speak. Doug is funny, loyal, and innocent. He's part of Muntz's team of talking dogs but quickly becomes friends with Carl and Russell. His childlike honesty and love for his master, Carl, make him one of the most lovable characters in the film. As the story moves forward, Carl is forced to face his past and the truth about what really matters. He realizes that adventure isn't always about going to far-off places. Sometimes, the biggest adventure is the life you share with someone. When Carl opens Ellie's old adventure book expecting to find blank pages, he discovers she had already filled them with pictures of their life together. She saw their quiet, simple life as an adventure, even if they never made it to Paradise Falls. That moment is when Carl finally understands that holding on to the past too tightly can stop you from living in the present. This discovery pushes Carl to change. He lets go, literally, by throwing out the furniture, memories, and even the house itself to rescue Russell and Kevin from Muntz. The final action scenes are thrilling but still full of heart. A house floating in the sky, dogs flying small planes, and a battle on a blimp might sound over the top, but in Up, everything feels grounded because the emotional core is so strong. In the end, Carl becomes the person Ellie always believed he could be. He adopts Russell as a kind of grandson, supports him at his wilderness explorer ceremony, and finally begins living a new chapter of his life. Not weighed down by grief, but lifted by the joy of new relationships and experiences. Russell, too, grows. He finds a real father figure in Carl, someone who sees him, listens to him, and cares. So why did Up become such a cultural phenomenon? It's because it did what few animated films dare to do. It told the truth. It spoke honestly about aging, loss, regret, friendship, and healing. It showed that even someone who feels forgotten can still have purpose. It proved that animated films aren't just for kids. They're for anyone with a heart. The film was also a technical achievement. The animation is stunning, from the realistic lighting of the balloons to the vast, beautiful landscapes of Paradise Falls. Every frame feels full of life and detail. The characters are uniquely designed and instantly recognizable. The color palette shifts with the mood, and the floating house itself becomes a symbol of memory, hope, and letting go. And then there's the music. Michael Giacchino's score, especially the main theme Married Life, is unforgettable. It plays during that opening montage and manages to express more emotion in 4 minutes than many films do in 2 hours. The music returns in different forms throughout the film, reminding us of love, loss, and the quiet beauty of everyday moments. The performances also deserve praise. Ed Asner, who voices Carl, brings the perfect mix of gruffness and vulnerability. Jordan Nagai, as Russell, brings heart and innocence. Bob Peterson, who also co-wrote the film, voices Doug and Alpha, creating one of the most memorable dog characters in animation. And Christopher Plummer brings depth and darkness to Charles Muntz, turning him from a childhood hero into a tragic villain. But most importantly, Up works because it speaks to something deep inside all of us. We've all had dreams that didn't come true. We've all lost someone we love. We've all felt stuck in the past or unsure of what comes next. And we've all, at some point, needed a push to move forward. Up gives us that push. It reminds us that it's never too late to start a new adventure, that life is full of unexpected turns, and that the people we meet along the way can change everything. The film was recognized for its excellence. It won 2 Academy Awards, including Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score, and was even nominated for Best Picture, something very rare for an animated film. It was praised by critics and loved by audiences all over the world. Kids enjoyed the fun, the balloons, the dogs, and the jungle. Adults connected with the story, the emotions, and the message. It became more than a movie. It became a part of the conversation about what animation can achieve. Even today, years after its release, Up continues to inspire. Teachers use it to talk about storytelling. Artists study its design and color. Therapists mention it in discussions about grief and healing. and fans rewatch it, not just for the laughs or the excitement, but for the feeling it leaves behind. That mix of sadness and hope, pain and beauty, that's what makes Up timeless. Watching Up isn't just entertainment. It's a reminder to appreciate the little things, to value the people we love, to stay curious and open to new experiences, no matter how old we are, to forgive ourselves for the dreams that didn't happen and celebrate the ones that did, even if they weren't part of the plan. So, whether you've seen it once or a dozen times, Up is always worth revisiting. Not just because it's a well-made film, but because it speaks to something universal. It's a story about how life moves on, and how we can, too. It's about finding the courage to take the next step, even when it's scary. And most of all, it's about love. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, lasting kind that fills photo albums, old chairs, and simple memories. May 29, 2009 marked the release of Up, a film that opens not with grand adventure, but with a small boy named Carl drawing a simple explorer badge in his scrapbook. That moment ignites a lifelong dream as he learns of explorer Charles Muntz, idolizing the idea that the world is full of which-to-be-discovered wonders. Soon he meets Ellie, a fearless and imaginative girl who shares his passion. Each childhood frame pulses with joy and possibility as their friendship blossoms. Races in treehouses, shared journals, and plans to someday visit the mysterious Paradise Falls. That girl and boy duo seem destined for something extraordinary together. Their youth transitions into marriage, beautifully captured in an emotional montage set to Michael Giacchino's Married Life. We see the simple rituals of life, home projects, photo albums, disappointments as baby plans fail, family struggles, and finally, old age and loss. No words are spoken, but the music says it all. That scrapbook badge, once a symbol of adventure, becomes a symbol of hope unfulfilled because Ellie passes away. Alone in the quiet house they shared, Carl's grief echoes through empty rooms and the framed adventure book lies unfinished. It's a deeply silent moment in cinema, a compressed lifetime of joy and sorrow that grips you as an audience before a single sentence of dialogue even begins. Fast forward to the present day and Carl is 78, grizzled and stiff but living with dignity. His quiet neighborhood is swallowed by cranes, high-rises, and a booming urban development. He is served eviction notices, court orders, and the imposition of assisted living. Posters, uniforms, and young voices crowd him. At the center of it all is Russell, an energetic wilderness explorer scout. A boy who appears on Carl's lawn one morning, seeking one last badge, assisting the elderly. Carl wants none of it. Russell wants everything, and neither is ready for the journey ahead. Carl responds by lashing out, squaring off with the construction crew that's demolishing a house right next to his. A bystander calls him a trespasser, and a court judge orders him to a retirement home. Faced with losing his house, the one place that still holds Ellie's presence, Carl decides on an audacious escape. He straps helium balloons to the roof, ties thousands of them in colorful clusters, and with one final tug he lifts his house skyward. The image of that house rising above city streets, breaking free from concrete confines, feels like hope made visible, unreasonable, surreal, irresistible. Just after takeoff, Carl thinks he's alone. Then he hears persistent footsteps on the porch and turns to see Russell, his wilderness explorer vest askew, hands trembling with excitement. Despite Carl's protests, and determined to earn his badge, Russell has slipped aboard. For Carl, this is disaster. For Russell, it's the grandest adventure he's ever known. The reluctant duo become airborne, the city shrinking below them, unsure where they're headed. Suspense builds. Will they fall? Will the house hold? The animation balances humor and frailty as pipes snap. The door opens and balloons shift. Carl's grumpy mutterings contrast with Russell's endless chatter about bears, hiking tips, and assorted wilderness survival facts. Every second feels precarious but alive. They soar over forests and lakes until a violent storm catches them. Rain pounds the balloons, wind tugs at power lines, lightning surges dangerously close. We see fear in Carl's furrowed eyes and excitement in Russell's giggling wonder. The storm tears ropes, balloons escape, and finally they crash down. but not into destruction. The house settles gently near a waterfall overlooking a jungle-clad valley. Paradise Falls lies ahead. Carl silently admires the view, but this isn't the sight he or Ellie imagined. There's no grandeur, only vast, wild green, with fog curling around stony cliffs. The mood shifts from exhilaration to uncertainty. Carl wonders how he'll reach the falls with a boy he never wanted at his side. They step outside, their house anchored precariously on stilts and cables. Rossi sketches. Carl commands the house steady. Russell bursts through curiosities. Where are penguins? Do birds talk? Carl's gruff responses and Russell's softer questions set up a growing tension. But then their path appears through wilderness with only the house on wheels behind them. They begin to walk the house across muddy patches and stream beds, wrapping thick ropes around logs to drag it. It's an image of absurd resilience. A house hauled by ropes, moving through dense jungle like a dream. This surreal journey is cinematic poetry. The weight of memory being pulled, step by step, through unfamiliar terrain. Soon they find Kevin, a tall, colorful bird pecking at berries, who responds to Russell's bright hello with swift flight. Russell calls her Kevin, a boy's name for a big, mysterious creature. Kevin's grace and size awe them both, and Russell decides Kevin is part of the adventure. Kevin runs a wobbly sprint, straight into a hidden pen. Carl reaches out, but Russell runs after Kevin, tripping over vines. Carl catches him, offended but also mildly amused. There's a budding warmth in Carl's soft gesture, and Russell beams in the shadow of Paradise Falls. Yet a deeper awe lingers. This rare bird, wild and untamed, is exactly what explorers dream of. Then the twist. They're not alone here. Strange dogs with collars that translate thoughts into speech bark around. They're working for someone. That someone is Charles Muntz, Carl's childhood idol. The mood shifts instantly. Faces flicker with shock. Russell, trying to rescue Kevin, activates a collar that labels Carl as the owner, triggering the dogs into obedience. Muntz arrives in a dirigible, flanked by armed guards. He greets Carl warmly at first, as if he's meeting a fellow legend. But that warmth freezes cold when Muntz learns Kevin is free. Muntz's charm dissolves into obsession. He is desperate to prove his discovery true. He's lost his public credibility, and now he will sacrifice anything to capture Kevin and clear his name. Carl's heart sinks. That hero he worshipped as a child is ruthless, a villain. Carl steps in front of Muntz's men to protect Russell. The tension mounts. Muntz levels threats. Carl grips a rope. Russell stands trembling. The ambient beauty of the valley becomes a stage for danger. The dogs rush. Muntz edges closer, and Carl's house groans under cargo. The dream of Paradise Falls shifts. It becomes about choices, courage, and who we trust. Early flashbacks, subtle murmurs of regret, and memories of Ellie drift in Carl's mind. He clings to the scrapbook, to the promise, but Russell stays close, dumbfounded and brave. The jungle grows darker, more alive, the foliage watching from all sides. Every sound is amplified. The rustle of leaves, Kevin's bird call, the dog's growls. The world they imagined is now evolving into something bigger and more complicated. By this point, the first half leaves us on a knife edge. Carl has achieved flight, escaped his past, reached the promised falls, but at the cost of everything familiar. Russell, young, uncertain, has become more. Kevin is no longer just a discovery. She's the spark that could reignite Muntz's obsession. And Muntz, once a hero, now looms as a threat. The path ahead is unknown, danger lies in beauty, and Carl's simple promise to Ellie has become a test of his own values. Each step forward is filled with suspense, mystery, and the thrill of what's to come. The jungle grows still after Carl and Russell escape Muntz's airship. Kevin is injured. The threat is real. The paradise they came to find is now a place of fear, betrayal, and burning choices. The once hopeful dream of reaching Paradise Falls has turned into a bitter race between loyalty and legacy. Muntz, no longer the shining symbol of youthful dreams, is exposed as a villain shaped by obsession and ego. And Carl, still clinging to a past he promised to preserve, finds himself at a breaking point. His mission to fulfill Ellie's dream standing on the edge of collapse. Back at their campsite, silence hangs between Carl and Russell. Kevin is gone. Months took her. The boy sits alone, defeated, and Carl does what he always does when overwhelmed. Shuts down. His focus narrows to what he can control, getting the house to the falls. Even as Russell pleads with him, saying they need to rescue Kevin, Carl coldly insists they stay on course. His words hit hard. "She's just a bird," he mutters. Russell, hurt and confused, doesn't say anything more. The next morning, Carl wakes to find Russell gone. He's taken a leaf blower strapped to some balloons and floated off toward Muntz's airship, determined to save Kevin himself. Carl, left alone with the house parked right next to the falls, the dream achieved, walks inside. The place is a mess. Burned, broken, heavy with loss. He sits in his armchair, the scrapbook still by his side. That old, worn book, Ellie's adventure book. For the first time, he opens it past the stuff I'm going to do page. And that's when the real moment comes. A series of photographs fills the pages. Pictures of Carl and Ellie's quiet life together. Picnics, painting the mailbox, sitting side by side, smiling, aging. The adventure wasn't the exotic trip to South America. It was the life they built. The book ends with a final note, scrawled in Ellie's handwriting. "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one." That's the turning point. Carl's face softens. The grip on the house, on the past, on the promises long gone, loosens. He finally sees that Ellie never needed Paradise Falls. She had her greatest adventure with him already. And now he's free to live again. Without hesitation, he begins throwing things out of the house. Chairs, furniture, the very weight of the past. He needs the house to fly again. He strips it down to nothing but structure and memory, and with a jolt of wind and balloon lift, he soars back into the sky, lighter, freer, and with a new purpose. Rescue Russell. Rescue Kevin. Finish the story right. Russell, meanwhile, has reached the airship, climbing aboard with bravery far beyond his years. Inside, Muntz stalks the halls, mad with desperation. Kevin is locked up. Doug, the loyal and simple-hearted dog, turns on his former master, siding with Carl and Russell as soon as he senses their kindness. When Carl arrives at the airship in flight, Doug helps him sneak aboard. It's a rescue mission now, with skies as the battleground. Inside the vast dirigible, Carl and Russell search frantically. The setting is part dream, part nightmare. Rooms filled with trophies, skeletons, maps, and madness. Muntz, having caught wind of their return, unleashes his army of dogs. What follows is a wildly inventive sequence. A mid-air battle involving a cane duel, flying dogs and biplanes, and a house bumping along the ship's hull. The absurdity never dulls the emotional stakes, because underneath the chaos is Carl's final transformation. He is no longer fighting to hold on to the past. He's risking everything to protect the future. Carl fights Muntz in a tense, dangerous scene as the airship spins out of control. Kevin is released from her cage. Russell, though scared, refuses to leave without her. Doug is promoted mid-fight to alpha dog after besting the top dog, and it's both hilarious and symbolic. Loyalty and kindness win over brute command, but Muntz is relentless. His obsession has overtaken his reason. Even as the ship begins to fall, even as Carl offers him a chance to stop, Muntz lunges for the bird again and slips. His fate, unspoken, is clear. He falls from the ship into the clouds below. The explorer who could never let go of proof loses everything. Kevin, Russell, Doug, and Carl escape barely. The house, floating alongside, finally reaches the limits of its strength. As Carl steers the ship away, he watches the house drift downward slowly, silently, into the foggy canyon. He doesn't cry. He doesn't panic. He just watches, letting go at last. It's not just a structure. It's the symbol of everything he carried for Ellie, and now he's finally free to move forward. The next scene fades gently into calm. We're back in the city. Carl and Russell sit side by side at a Wilderness Explorer award ceremony. Russell's dad is late, again, but Carl is there, smiling, present, proud. When it's time to hand out Russell's final badge, the leader begins to pin it on, but Carl steps forward. He hands Russell Ellie's old grape soda pin, the one she gave Carl when they were kids. It's not an official badge, but it means more than any medal ever could. It's a symbol of love, of legacy, and of the bond they now share. Carl, once a lonely old man who locked himself away with grief, now sits on a curb outside an ice cream shop with a kid who talks too much and a dog who talks just enough. They count red and blue cars passing by. They share snacks. They laugh. Life has started again. The closing shot zooms out slowly, quietly. And there, sitting peacefully at the edge of Paradise Falls, untouched by time, rests Carl and Ellie's house, right where she always dreamed it would be. It made it. Even if Carl had to let it go, even if it floated there without him, it found its place. That's the beauty of Up. Every thread ties together. Carl's promise to Ellie, Russell's need for connection, Kevin's freedom, Doug's loyalty, and even the house, no longer a burden, but a tribute to the past that gave Carl the strength to create a new future. The story begins with loss and longing, and ends with joy and renewal. It's a full circle, a reminder that the adventures we think we missed may have already happened in ways we didn't expect. And the ones still to come, they might be waiting in the most unexpected places, with people who need us as much as we need them. At the heart of Up isn't just a house that floats or a jungle filled with talking dogs. It's a story driven by deeply human characters, each with their own longings, flaws, and quiet triumphs. It's these characters, and how they grow together, that turn Up from an adventure into a classic. Carl Fredricksen begins his story not as the grumpy old man we first meet, but as a quiet, curious little boy with wide glasses and a wild imagination. The world feels too big for him until he hears the voice of Ellie, a whirlwind of energy and confidence who pulls him into a lifelong promise of adventure. That young bond becomes the emotional blueprint of Carl's life. He dreams of exploring the world with her, and together, they map out a journey to the mysterious Paradise Falls. Yet, life doesn't follow the plans written in childhood scrapbooks. Carl and Ellie's dreams slowly fade into real-world struggles. House repairs, hospital visits, and the heartbreak of never becoming parents. Still, their love never dims. It becomes quieter, deeper, and filled with the kind of comfort only built by years of shared laughter, silence, and weathered challenges. When Ellie dies, Carl doesn't just lose his wife. He loses the story he thought they were supposed to finish together. He clings to their house as if it's the last part of her still breathing. But in doing so, he shuts himself off from the world. The Carl we meet after Ellie's death is crusty, distant, and full of sorrow he refuses to show. He's not mean, he's mourning, and that's what makes him feel so real. He's every person who's ever been left behind by time, holding on to things not because they're useful, but because they're filled with memories too painful to let go. Ed Asner's performance as Carl is subtle but powerful. His voice carries the heavy weight of a man who has loved deeply and lost just as deeply. It's in the quiet sighs, the dry sarcasm, and the rare, soft chuckles that Carl becomes more than a cartoon. He becomes someone we recognize. Then comes Russell, a chubby, eager, awkward 8-year-old wilderness explorer with a heart so big it barely fits in his little orange vest. On the surface, Russell is comic relief. A kid who talks too much and knows too little about the world he's venturing into. But as we follow him, we learn that behind the badges and big questions lies a boy who's just trying to matter to someone. Russell's mother is never shown, and his father is distant and disengaged. His attempts to connect are subtle, offering assistance, asking Carl if he ever plays catch, telling stories about his mom's cooking. These moments reveal a boy aching for attention. Not just the approval of a badge, but the belonging of a family. Jordan Nagai, the child actor who voices Russell, brings authenticity to every line. His delivery isn't polished, and that's exactly why it works. Russell feels like a real kid, stumbling through sentences, blurting out questions, and trying to make sense of a world that's let him down more than once. As the story unfolds, Russell becomes the emotional mirror for Carl. Where Carl sees endings, Russell sees beginnings. Where Carl holds onto the past, Russell rushes into the unknown. And slowly, that contrast pulls Carl back to life. Their bond isn't immediate. In fact, for much of the movie, Carl finds Russell annoying. He dismisses his questions, ignores his stories, and sees him as a burden rather than a companion. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something changes. When Carl sees Russell's bravery as he risks everything to save Kevin, or hears him talk about his absent father, the crust begins to crack. One of the most touching moments isn't loud or dramatic. It's when Russell says, "The boring stuff is the stuff I remember the most." That line, said with childlike honesty, hits Carl like a revelation. For decades, he thought the grand adventure with Ellie had never happened. But in that moment, he understands that the adventure was in the small, boring, beautiful moments they shared. Then there's Doug, a golden retriever with a collar that translates his thoughts into speech. Doug could have been a simple comedic addition, but he turns out to be a grounding force. His loyalty, sincerity, and absolute joy remind both Carl and Russell what unconditional love looks like. Doug doesn't care about the past. He isn't looking for validation. He loves completely and without hesitation. Carl initially finds him ridiculous, but Doug wins him over not with tricks, but with simple honesty. "I have just met you, and I love you," Doug says, and oddly enough, it becomes one of the film's most poignant lines. Doug represents something Carl has lost and Russell has never fully had. Someone who stays. Doug is also important because he contrasts with the other dogs, especially Alpha, the snarling, dominant pack leader whose collar is broken, giving him a comically high-pitched voice. It's not just funny, it's symbolic. Alpha tries to project power and control, but the truth keeps squeaking through. That theme of appearances versus reality runs deep through all the characters, from the dogs to Muntz to Carl himself. Speaking of Muntz, no character in Up casts a longer shadow than him. He begins as Carl's childhood hero, an explorer so bold he was considered a legend. But the Muntz we meet is no longer a hero. Time has not humbled him, it has corrupted him. Driven mad by the need to prove himself, Muntz becomes the cautionary tale of what happens when ambition turns to obsession. He is what Carl might have become, alone, angry, and stuck in the past. Christopher Plummer voices Muntz with cold elegance. He's not a screaming villain. He's calm, calculated, and polite. Even as he plots terrible things, that quiet menace makes him chilling. And it also makes his downfall more tragic. Muntz didn't have to end up that way, but he never let go. He never accepted failure. And in his quest to preserve his legacy, he lost everything else. Kevin, the exotic bird that Russell befriends, may not speak, but she's vital to the story. Kevin isn't just a plot device. She's a symbol of freedom and protection. She has babies to care for, and despite being hunted, she keeps fighting. Her bond with Russell is immediate and pure, and her presence gives the story a tangible sense of wonder. She brings out Russell's bravery and Carl's empathy. In saving Kevin, Carl isn't just keeping a promise. He's rediscovering his humanity. And then there's Ellie. Though she's gone by the time the main story begins, her presence is felt in every frame. Through photos, through the house, through Carl's memory, Ellie lives on. Her voice, her laugh, her sense of adventure. These elements guide Carl even when he doesn't. From the moment Up begins, it's clear that what lies beneath its colorful surface is a world meticulously built with meaning. Every frame holds more than meets the eye. Each object, sound, and shape is carefully placed to speak to the viewer, even if only subconsciously. The brilliance of Up isn't just in its adventure or emotion. It's in how it rewards those who pay attention. The hidden details and Easter eggs in the film add extra layers that make every rewatch more rewarding than the last. The house itself is a living scrapbook, and not just because it's filled with Ellie's memories. Its design tells Carl and Ellie's story in visual language. Everything associated with Carl, his furniture, his side of the house, even his shape, is square and rigid. Carl's body, with its boxy head and thick glasses, mirrors the heavy, square architecture of the home. It reflects his mindset, structured, confined, controlled. Ellie, on the other hand, is represented with round, flowing lines, her chair, her frames, her drawings, her presence. Even her handwriting is round and full of motion. The house, filled with these two contrasting design philosophies, becomes a perfect visual metaphor for their relationship. When the house finally floats away, carried by bright, round balloons, it's not just a whimsical image, it's symbolic. Carl is being pulled, literally and emotionally, away from his fixed way of life. That idea of transition and movement is embedded everywhere. The color palette shifts gradually throughout the movie, starting muted and washed out after Ellie's passing, then growing more vibrant as Carl reconnects with life. The first half of Carl's solo life is filled with dull grays and browns. But once the adventure begins, the sky opens up in radiant blue, and the jungle teems with saturated greens and wild colors. Even the balloon colors aren't random. They're childlike, energetic, and filled with joy, contrasting Carl's somber world. The balloons represent Ellie's spirit, lifting Carl toward new possibilities. There's a beautiful piece of foreshadowing in the married life montage that many miss on first viewing. As Carl and Ellie save up for their dream trip to Paradise Falls, they place coins in a large glass jar labeled for travel. But every time they come close, life interrupts. A flat tire, a medical bill, a new roof. Each time, the jar gets shattered open, just like their dream. The repeated sound of the jar being emptied quietly builds a rhythm of disappointment. So, when Carl finally fills thousands of balloons and lifts off, it's not just a fantastical escape. It's him reclaiming the dream he and Ellie never fulfilled. But the real twist of the montage comes later in the scrapbook. Carl always believed the stuff I'm going to do section was blank because they never made it to Paradise Falls. But when he finally opens it, he discovers Ellie had filled it with photos of their life together. She didn't see their life as unfulfilled. To her, the adventure was already lived, through shared breakfasts, home repairs, quiet laughter, and time spent side by side. That quiet reveal is not only a turning point in Carl's journey, it reframes the entire movie. The most important adventure had already happened. And that subtle realization is one of the most beautiful symbolic moments Pixar has ever crafted. Symbolism appears again through one tiny but powerful object, the grape soda pin. Given to Carl by Ellie when they were children, this Ellie badge becomes the film's emotional core. It's a stand-in for love, memory, and eventually legacy. When Carl gives it to Russell at the end, it's not just a gesture. It's a complete transfer of trust, affection, and purpose. In a world filled with official medals and flashy awards, a handmade pin becomes the most valuable object. It's also a clever reversal. Carl, who spent the whole movie clinging to things, finally lets go of the most important one, and in doing so finds peace. The characters' arcs are reflected in the story's very geography. Carl starts off in a densely populated, modern city, crowded and loud, but emotionally empty. His home is the last one standing amid skyscrapers and bulldozers. That visual contrast, old versus new, past versus progress, speaks to Carl's internal state. He's clinging to a world that no longer exists. But when he lands in the jungle, he discovers that true adventure isn't about escaping civilization. It's about human connection, something he'd lost and Russell brings back. And then there's Russell. His character may appear simple at first, a talkative, badge-chasing kid, but his motivations are layered with emotional weight. The small detail of his badge sash is filled with hints. Among the dozens of earned and unearned badges are Easter eggs for Pixar fans. The classic Luxo Junior ball, an image of a slice of pizza, and other subtle nods to Pixar history. But one badge slot remains empty, his assisting the elderly badge, the one he hopes Carl will help him earn. That one missing circle represents Russell's deepest hope, to feel needed and noticed. In fact, Russell's desire for recognition mirrors Carl's need for redemption. Both of them, though generations apart, are searching for something more than a destination. Russell doesn't want the badge for the badge's sake. He wants someone to be proud of him. That's why, when he talks about sitting on the curb with his dad and eating ice cream, it hits so hard. That might sound boring, he says, but I think the boring stuff is the stuff I remember most. In that moment, Russell unknowingly teaches Carl what Ellie already knew. Life's beauty lies in the small, ordinary moments. Even Doug, the talking dog, serves a deeper purpose than comic relief. His collar, which translates his thoughts, is a brilliant narrative tool, one that adds levity but also truth. Doug is pure, loyal, and sincere. He doesn't overthink, doesn't hide feelings, doesn't judge. He simply loves. His loyalty to Carl, despite initial rejection, reflects unconditional friendship and contrasts sharply with Alpha, the pack's leader. Interestingly, Alpha's deep, intimidating presence is undermined by a malfunctioning voice collar, giving him a squeaky, high-pitched voice. It's not just funny, it's a metaphor. Appearances deceive. Power doesn't equal strength. Like Muntz, Alpha appears fearsome but is ultimately weak when stripped of his illusion of control. Charles Muntz himself is packed with hidden depth. Initially shown as a heroic explorer, Muntz represents what Carl might have become if he let bitterness and obsession take over. The very airship he pilots, the Spirit of Adventure, is a callback to 1930s aviation culture, evoking real-life figures like Charles Lindbergh. The name also serves as ironic commentary, because Muntz, who claimed to be an adventurer, is anything but adventurous by the time Carl meets him. He's stuck, paranoid, and consumed by his past. There are subtle clues throughout that Muntz has lost his way. His trophies, the preserved skeletons, and the violent methods he uses to capture Kevin all point to someone who values recognition over wonder. He didn't keep exploring, he kept chasing proof. And in the end, it's that obsession that leads to his downfall. Kevin, the rare bird Muntz is chasing, has her own quiet symbolism. She represents freedom, motherhood, and wild joy. She's elusive, playful, and protective. She bonds with Russell almost immediately, sensing his goodness. And through Kevin, the stakes become personal. It's no longer about travel or redemption, it's about protecting something pure. Carl's choice to help save Kevin marks the moment he lets go of his old self for good. Even the placement of the house matters. In the final scenes, after the battles are over, Carl and Russell return home. We see the house one last time, resting silently at the edge of Paradise Falls. It's exactly where Ellie dreamed it would be. But Carl is no longer inside. He's not clinging to it anymore. He's moved forward, sitting on a curb with Russell, eating ice cream, living in the moment. That visual of Carl separated from the house says everything about his transformation. As with all Pixar films, Up also sneaks in playful connections to other films. The Pizza Planet truck appears in the background as Carl's house lifts off. The classic A113 code, found in nearly every Pixar film, appears on the courtroom door. And the shape of Doug's body is almost identical to other Pixar dog characters, hinting at a shared design language. One of the most touching hidden nods occurs in another Pixar film, Toy Story 3. On Andy's bulletin board is a postcard from Carl and Ellie. It's not just a throwaway reference. It's a sign that Pixar sees its characters as part of a connected, emotional universe. Ellie and Carl, in some version of their lives, are remembered by others. It suggests that the adventures we go on, the people we love, and the lives we touch, they leave traces far beyond our own stories. When we think of Up, what usually comes to mind is the heart-tugging story, the breathtaking visuals, and the unforgettable characters like Carl, Russell, and Doug. But beneath the surface of this beloved Pixar classic lies a fascinating journey packed with unexpected twists, creative leaps, and downright strange moments that shaped the film into the masterpiece we know today. The first thing to understand is that making Up was anything but straightforward. From the earliest days, the filmmakers knew they were tackling something ambitious, telling a story about loss, adventure, and friendship, all within a world that could charm both children and adults. Balancing the emotional depth with the humor and fantastical elements demanded innovation and courage, and that meant overcoming some unique production challenges. One of the biggest hurdles was perfecting the look and feel of Carl's floating house. At first, animators struggled with how to realistically depict thousands of colorful balloons lifting a full-sized house into the sky. It sounds whimsical now, but physically, this was a nightmare. They had to figure out how the balloons would cluster together, how the house would sway, and even how light would bounce off the balloon surfaces. To create believable motion, Pixar's team studied real balloons and created new software to simulate their behavior. No easy feat, especially considering the computational limits of the time. The house itself also posed an artistic puzzle. Early concept art shows that Carl's home went through multiple design changes. Originally, the house was bigger, more ornate, and somewhat cartoony. But director Pete Docter insisted on a design that felt grounded and realistic, with a slightly old-fashioned charm. The final version is a cozy, slightly worn Victorian house, complete with peeling paint and sagging roof tiles. That weathered look wasn't accidental. It visually symbolizes Carl's own state of mind, worn down by loss but still standing strong. Casting for Up also brought unexpected surprises. Ed Asner, who lent his distinctive voice to Carl, was already known for gruff but lovable characters, and his performance brought genuine warmth and humor to the grumpy widower. However, some early animators reportedly found it tricky to match Carl's facial animations to Asner's voice performance because of the subtle nuances in his delivery. This led the animators to study Ed's facial expressions in interviews and TV appearances to capture that blend of curmudgeon and soft heart. Jason Topolsky, the young actor who voiced Russell, was discovered through an open casting call that attracted thousands of children. Pixar wanted a voice that sounded genuine, not overly polished or theatrical, and Jason's natural energy and innocence sealed the deal. What many don't know is that his family moved to California temporarily so he could work closely with the animation team, which was unusual for child actors in animated films. This close collaboration allowed the animators to incorporate Jason's real reactions into Russell's expressions, lending the character an authentic spark. Then there's Doug, the talking dog, whose voice was performed by Bob Peterson, a Pixar animator and writer. Peterson wasn't a traditional voice actor, but his warm, goofy performance gave Doug a uniquely endearing quality. What's fascinating is that Bob recorded Doug's lines alone, in a quiet studio, without acting partners to play off of, and yet the final result feels lively and spontaneous. To help, animators used Peterson's voice recordings to fine-tune Doug's facial expressions and timing, creating a seamless blend of voice and movement. Another strange bit of behind-the-scenes lore centers on Charles Muntz, the film's villain. Early versions of Muntz were far more sinister, even physically threatening. But as the story evolved, the creative team realized that making him a tragic, obsessive figure rather than a stereotypical villain made the story more compelling. Still, the animators kept some monster elements in Muntz's character design. The sharp angles, the piercing eyes, reflecting his gradual descent into madness. Interestingly, some concept art depicts Muntz with a mechanical arm, hinting at a steampunk aesthetic that was ultimately dropped but reveals how the character could have gone in a very different direction. On the topic of animation style, Up was groundbreaking in other ways too. The lush jungle scenes were crafted using new techniques to simulate light filtering through dense foliage, adding layers of realism that had rarely been seen before in animated films. The animators studied nature documentaries, traveled to rainforests, and even brought in botanists to understand plant movement and growth. The painstaking attention to detail was so intense that the animators joked they felt like they were living in the jungle during production. Music, as always with Pixar, played a huge role in shaping Up's emotional arc. Composer Michael Giacchino's score won an Academy Award. But what's lesser known is how Giacchino created themes to reflect not just characters but specific emotions and memories. The iconic Married Life piece was written early and then adapted to fit multiple scenes, shifting in tempo and tone to mirror Carl's feelings. Giacchino's subtle use of instruments, like the gentle accordion and piano, imbued the film with a nostalgic feel, connecting viewers emotionally to the unfolding story. The voice recording sessions also had their share of surprises. Ed Asner and Jason Topolsky rarely recorded their lines together, which meant the dialogue scenes were often created through clever editing. However, in one memorable session, Asner improvised a line that wasn't in the script, bringing a new depth to Carl's gruff affection for Russell. The director kept the take, and it became a fan favorite for its warmth and humor. Another unusual fact is that Up was one of the first Pixar films to extensively use stereoscopic 3D technology. Although Pixar is known for pushing boundaries in CGI, the challenge of making a story that was so emotionally intimate work in 3D was significant. The team had to find the right balance, ensuring that the 3D effects didn't overwhelm the story but enhanced the immersive experience. This meant innovating ways to create depth, like the floating house soaring above the city skyline or Kevin's feathers shimmering in the jungle, that pulled audiences into the world without distracting from the characters. Despite the warmth and joy the film ultimately conveys, the production wasn't without moments of tension. The emotional weight of the married life montage, an almost dialogue-free sequence showing Carl and Ellie's life together, had some crew members moved to tears during editing. Balancing the sadness with hope was a delicate act, and test audiences initially found the opening unexpectedly heavy. Pixar held special screenings and worked with counselors to prepare for the impact, but the filmmakers stood by their choice, believing the emotional honesty was essential to the film's power. There were also interesting cultural challenges. Since the story is deeply tied to exploration and nature, Pixar wanted to ensure respectful representation of South American landscapes and indigenous cultures. Consultants were brought in to help avoid stereotypes, resulting in subtle but meaningful touches, like the design of Paradise Falls, inspired by Venezuela's Angel Falls, and the respectful portrayal of nature's beauty without exoticizing it. On a lighter note, the production crew loved adding little jokes and tributes in the background. One famous example is the dogs playing poker painting scene briefly in Muntz's lair, a nod to classic Americana. Another is the recurring appearance of the Pixar Luxo ball on Russell's sash and in other scenes, a friendly wink to loyal fans. Even after release, Up continued to surprise. The film's iconic house and balloon scene was so complex that it inspired a behind-the-scenes documentary on animation techniques. The creative team shared how they combined physics simulations with handcrafted artistry to make that moment feel both magical and believable. The film's critical acclaim and box office success were enormous, but some early executives were nervous about a film centered around an elderly man and a young boy, not the typical recipe for a family blockbuster. However, director Pete Docter's unwavering vision and the team's dedication proved that heartfelt storytelling could break conventions and reach audiences of all ages. Finally, one of the strangest yet sweetest behind-the-scenes stories comes from the personal connection the film inspired. Pete Docter named the character of Russell after a real boy he met during a scouting trip, who shared many of Russell's traits: shyness, eagerness, and heart. This personal touch grounded the character in reality and helped the filmmakers tell a story that felt universal and deeply human. From the very beginning, Up sets itself apart with moments that are simple yet profoundly affecting, inviting viewers into a world where every scene carries emotional weight and thematic richness. It's not just the story of a grumpy old man or an excitable kid. It's a meditation on life, loss, hope, and connection. What makes Up truly special are the scenes that resonate beyond the screen, embedding themselves in the audience's hearts long after the credits roll. One of the film's most unforgettable moments is the opening montage, often called Married Life. Without a single word spoken, this sequence conveys the full arc of Carl and Ellie's relationship, from childhood friendship and youthful dreams to marriage, struggle, and eventually loss. What makes this scene extraordinary is its economy and honesty. The animators and director Pete Docter masterfully used simple visuals and a stirring score by Michael Giacchino to tell a universal story of love and grief. The passage of time is shown through playful touches: the balloon purchases, the broken jar of savings, the empty rocking chair, that feel personal and true. It's a moment that breaks many viewers' hearts, not through melodrama, but through a delicate balance of hope and melancholy. This scene establishes the emotional stakes of the entire film, setting a tone that is both intimate and profound. The power of this montage also lies in its thematic depth. It introduces the idea that life's real adventure isn't a grand journey to exotic places, but the everyday moments shared with those we love. This theme underpins Carl's entire quest, making the later scenes of his house floating to Paradise Falls more than just an escapist fantasy. It's about carrying memories and dreams forward, about honoring what came before while opening up to what's next. Another pivotal scene that anchors the film's emotional core is Carl's encounter with Russell early in the story. Their initial interactions are filled with humor and friction, Carl's curmudgeonly reluctance clashing with Russell's eager innocence. But beneath the surface is a tender dynamic developing, one that reflects the human need for companionship and purpose. The moment Carl reluctantly agrees to take Russell on his adventure is charged with unspoken loneliness and the first flicker of hope for change. This interaction speaks to a deeper message: the unexpected connections that transform us, the way new relationships can heal old wounds. Audience reactions often highlight how these two characters, so different yet so complementary, become a metaphor for life's unpredictability and the beauty of opening ourselves up. The Journey to Paradise Falls introduces several key moments that blend suspense, humor, and wonder. The arrival at the jungle itself is a visual feast, bursting with vibrant colors and dynamic animation. But it's not just the scenery that captivates. It's the shift in Carl's character as he steps out of his comfort zone. Watching him navigate unfamiliar terrain, deal with his house tethered precariously by balloons, and face unexpected challenges is both exciting and deeply human. This transition from isolation to engagement is a crucial thematic beat, showing Carl's gradual reawakening. One of the most suspenseful and emotionally charged scenes comes when Carl, Russell, and Doug encounter Kevin, the rare bird Muntz is obsessively pursuing. Kevin's playful but wary nature mirrors the wildness of the jungle and symbolizes freedom itself. The chase sequences that follow combine thrilling action with moments of genuine tenderness, especially as Russell bonds with Kevin, showcasing his kindness and courage. Here, the film explores themes of protection and empathy, highlighting that true adventure involves caring for others, not just conquering nature or achieving goals. The confrontation with Charles Muntz is another high-stakes moment that carries thematic resonance. Muntz's obsession with capturing Kevin becomes a dark reflection of what Carl might become if he remains trapped by bitterness and revenge. The tension between Carl and Muntz is not just physical but ideological, a battle between holding onto the past at all costs and embracing change. The climax, where Carl must choose between clinging to his home or saving Kevin, crystallizes the film's central message. When Carl lets go of the house, it's more than a plot point. It's an emotional release, a symbolic act of moving forward. Audience reactions to this scene are often deeply emotional, as viewers witness Carl's growth and redemption in a moment filled with both sacrifice and hope. The film's final scenes continue this emotional journey with a gentle, satisfying resolution. Carl and Russell sitting on the curb, sharing ice cream, echoes Russell's earlier wish for simple, meaningful moments. This quiet ending reinforces the idea that life's true treasures are the bonds we form and the memories we make, not grand adventures or trophies. It's a scene that leaves viewers with a warm sense of closure, celebrating connection and acceptance. Throughout Up, the interplay between humor and poignancy keeps the story balanced and accessible. Moments of comic relief, often delivered through Doug's lovable antics or Russell's naive enthusiasm, provide breathing room without undermining the film's emotional weight. This blend of light and dark creates a rich viewing experience that feels authentic and nuanced. Critical perspectives also highlight how Up challenges traditional storytelling in animation. By centering an elderly protagonist and exploring themes of grief and aging, the film breaks away from the usual focus on youth and fantasy. This choice broadens its appeal and invites deeper reflection on life stages. It also fosters empathy across generations, as viewers of all ages find something relatable in Carl's journey. Moreover, the film's visual storytelling, through meticulous design, color choices, and animation, amplifies its themes. For instance, the transformation of the cityscape from cold and gray to vibrant and alive mirrors Carl's emotional awakening. Subtle visual cues, like the round shapes associated with Ellie and the square forms linked to Carl, enrich the narrative without needing explicit explanation. Audience reactions to Up often center on its ability to make them feel a wide spectrum of emotions, from laughter to tears, excitement to nostalgia. Its key moments resonate because they are rooted in authentic human experiences. Love, loss, friendship, and hope, delivered with artistry and care. This emotional honesty is why the film continues to be celebrated as one of Pixar's most impactful works. In sum, Up's most powerful scenes work together to create a tapestry of meaning that elevates the film beyond mere entertainment. Each moment, whether silent or spoken, joyful or sorrowful, adds depth and texture to the story, shaping an experience that stays with audiences long after they've left the theater. The film's success lies in its ability to balance heart and humor, adventure and intimacy, making it a timeless story about the courage to let go and the joy of new beginnings. From the very first frames of Up, the film stakes its claim as a deeply emotional and thematically rich story that resonates across ages and cultures. What makes Up extraordinary isn't just its dazzling animation or adventurous premise, but its ability to weave moments of genuine heart into every scene, creating an experience that lingers in the minds and hearts of viewers. This emotional resonance is built on a series of carefully crafted moments that stand out as the film's beating core, shaping not only the narrative but also the audience's connection to the story and its characters. The opening sequence, often hailed as one of the most powerful introductions in animated cinema, is a perfect example. The married life montage that portrays Carl and Ellie's life together, without a single word spoken, is a masterclass in visual storytelling. This sequence captures the full arc of a lifelong relationship, from young love and shared dreams to hardship and loss, in just a few minutes. What makes it so impactful is the economy of storytelling. Every frame carries meaning, from the colorful balloons symbolizing childhood innocence to the empty chair hinting at absence and grief. The score by Michael Giacchino, delicate yet sweeping, elevates these visuals with a sense of nostalgia and bittersweet beauty. This montage sets the emotional tone for the entire film, inviting viewers into Carl's world not as mere spectators, but as empathetic companions. It establishes themes of love, loss, and the passage of time that resonate throughout the movie. Audiences often describe this opening as deeply moving, with many recounting moments where tears welled up unexpectedly. It's a rare feat for an animated film to touch on mortality and heartbreak with such subtlety and grace. And this scene exemplifies how Up elevates the medium beyond traditional family entertainment. As the story moves forward, the introduction of Russell, the enthusiastic young wilderness explorer, shifts the tone with a burst of humor and energy. The dynamic between Carl and Russell is rich with thematic tension. The grumpy, isolated widower contrasts sharply with the innocent, talkative boy. Their initial interactions are filled with awkwardness and resistance. Yet beneath the surface is the promise of connection and healing. The moment Carl grudgingly accepts Russell's company is a pivotal turning point, reflecting a universal human experience. The difficulty and eventual reward of opening oneself up to others. This relationship deepens the film's emotional complexity, showing that friendship and family can be found in unexpected places. Audiences often respond warmly to this pairing, appreciating how the film balances Carl's introspective, sometimes stubborn nature with Russell's boundless optimism. The interplay of humor and vulnerability in their scenes keeps viewers engaged and emotionally invested, making their journey feel authentic and relatable. One of the film's most thrilling and visually stunning moments arrives as Carl's house, tethered to thousands of balloons, lifts off into the sky. This scene is a breathtaking spectacle of color, movement, and imagination, showcasing Pixar's technical mastery. But beyond the visual wow factor, this moment symbolizes Carl's break from his static, grief-bound existence and the start of an adventure filled with possibility. The soaring house is a metaphor for liberation and hope, and viewers often describe feeling a sense of wonder mixed with anticipation. At its heart, Up is much more than an adventure story about a flying house or a Boy Scout and his grumpy companion. It's a profound meditation on life's journey, the passage of time, and the human need for connection. From the very beginning, the film invites viewers to look beyond its vibrant colors and whimsical characters, encouraging a deeper reflection on themes that touch every one of us. One of the most resonant themes in Up is the way it portrays love and loss, not as separate chapters but as intertwined parts of a lifetime. The silent opening montage showing Carl and Ellie's shared life captures this beautifully. Their dreams of adventure, their struggles with infertility, and the quiet moments of joy and heartbreak reflect the universal human experience of cherishing the fleeting nature of time. Here, Pixar taps into something timeless, that love is both a source of immense happiness and inevitable sorrow, and yet it's worth every moment. This emotional truth underpins the entire film, shaping Carl's motivations and the choices he makes. The floating house, a seemingly magical element, is laden with symbolic meaning. For Carl, it's more than just a home. It's a vessel carrying memories, promises, and identity. The house symbolizes the weight of the past, a physical manifestation of Carl's attachment to Ellie and their shared life. When it finally takes to the skies, lifted by thousands of balloons, it represents Carl's attempt to hold onto those memories, to keep the past alive even as time moves forward. Yet, as the story unfolds, the house also becomes a symbol of the limitations of clinging too tightly to what once was. The moment Carl releases the house near the end is a powerful act of letting go, signifying personal growth and the readiness to embrace new beginnings. Russell's character introduces another vital theme: the innocence and hopefulness of youth. His earnest desire to earn his assisting the elderly badge and his unwavering optimism serve as a counterpoint to Carl's cynicism and grief. Through Russell, the film highlights the importance of intergenerational relationships, how the young and old can learn from and heal each other. This dynamic reflects real-world ideas about family, community, and the bonds that sustain us beyond blood ties. Kevin, the elusive bird, is another symbol worth unpacking. On the surface, Kevin is a whimsical, colorful creature. But within the story, she represents freedom, wonder, and the wildness of nature. Kevin's refusal to be captured by Charles Muntz, the obsessed explorer, underscores a critique of humanity's desire to dominate and control nature. Muntz's relentless pursuit of Kevin echoes real-world tensions around environmental exploitation and the cost of obsession. In contrast, Russell's protective instincts toward Kevin show a more compassionate relationship with the natural world, one based on respect and care. Charles Muntz himself serves as a dark mirror to Carl's journey. Once a celebrated adventurer, Muntz's descent into obsession and moral decay illustrates the dangers of letting past glory and vengeance consume one's life. His character embodies themes of hubris and the destructive side of ambition. By juxtaposing Muntz's reckless pursuit with Carl's gradual emotional awakening, Up contrasts selfish obsession with the redemptive power of love and connection. Beyond personal themes, Up offers subtle social commentary on aging and the societal role of the elderly. Carl begins the film isolated and overlooked, living a quiet life marked by routine and solitude. His initial reluctance to engage with Russell and the world around him reflects common stereotypes about aging: withdrawal, bitterness, invisibility. Yet, as the story progresses, Carl's transformation challenges these notions, portraying the elderly as capable of growth, adventure, and meaningful relationships. This portrayal invites viewers to reconsider societal attitudes toward aging, emphasizing dignity, vitality, and the ongoing potential for change. The film also touches on themes of loneliness and community. Carl's isolation after Ellie's death is palpable, and his journey becomes as much about reconnecting with others as it is about reaching Paradise Falls. Through his relationship with Russell and Doug, the talking dog, Carl rebuilds a sense of belonging. This progression reflects a universal human need for connection and suggests that healing often comes through opening oneself to friendship and new experiences. Symbolism runs deep in the film's visual language as well. The balloons themselves are a rich metaphor for hope, dreams, and the uplifting power of memories. Their vibrant colors contrast with the grayness of Carl's city life, visually representing the tension between stagnation and aspiration. The jungle environment near Paradise Falls symbolizes the unknown and the adventure that lies beyond comfort zones. It's a place of growth and discovery, where characters confront their fears and expand their horizons. The contrast between the city's rigid structures and the jungle's wild chaos further emphasizes the film's themes. The city, with its orderly streets and gray buildings, mirrors Carl's closed-off emotional state, while the jungle represents freedom and unpredictability, the messy but vibrant aspects of life that Carl must learn to embrace. Up also reflects broader cultural ideas about adventure and exploration. The film pays homage to classic adventure tales while simultaneously questioning their traditional narratives. Charles Muntz's story critiques the romanticization of conquest and trophies, instead proposing a more nuanced understanding of exploration, one that values respect for nature and relationships over personal glory. Moreover, the film subtly addresses the idea of legacy. Carl's desire to fulfill the promise he made to Ellie, to take her to Paradise Falls, can be seen as a metaphor for honoring the past while forging a path forward. His eventual realization that true legacy lies in the relationships we build and the kindness we show adds a layer of philosophical reflection about what it means to live a meaningful life. The social commentary extends to environmental themes as well. The depiction of Paradise Falls as a pristine, almost sacred place contrasts sharply with the destructive behavior of Muntz. This tension highlights the need for environmental stewardship and respect for natural wonders. Through Russell and Carl's protective actions toward Kevin and the environment, the film advocates for a more compassionate and sustainable approach to the natural world. All these themes and symbols intertwine seamlessly throughout Up, enriching its narrative and inviting repeated viewings and deeper reflections. The film doesn't preach but rather opens a space for viewers to engage with complex ideas through its characters' journeys and choices. From the very first moments of Up, the film immediately captivates viewers with a visual style that feels both richly detailed and warmly accessible, drawing us into Carl Fredricksen's world with a blend of realism and whimsy. The film's cinematography, though animated, mirrors many of the principles found in live-action filmmaking. Careful framing, lighting, and composition all work in harmony to tell the story visually, sometimes even without a single line of dialogue. This seamless integration of visual storytelling is one of the many ways director Pete Docter and his creative team elevate the film beyond a typical animated adventure, crafting a cinematic experience that feels intimate, immersive, and emotionally resonant. The opening sequence is perhaps the most iconic example of Up's visual storytelling mastery. The married life montage, which depicts the course of Carl and Ellie's relationship wordlessly, uses a series of carefully framed shots to convey joy, hope, and eventual sorrow. The camera work here is gentle and steady, often employing close-ups on small objects, a balloon, a photo, a savings jar, that carry enormous emotional weight. The lighting is soft and warm, evoking the coziness and comfort of shared memories. This subtle, restrained approach lets viewers feel the passage of time naturally, the editing rhythmically matching the score by Michael Giacchino, whose music gently swells and recedes like waves of emotion. The montage's pacing is perfect, slow enough to savor each moment, but flowing quickly enough to encompass an entire lifetime in just a few minutes. It's a brilliant example of how editing and cinematography collaborate to build empathy and set the story's emotional foundation without words. Throughout the film, the camera movements and angles are thoughtfully chosen to reflect characters' emotional states. For instance, early scenes often use tight, claustrophobic framing around Carl to emphasize his isolation and stubbornness, while wider shots dominate the adventurous jungle sequences, conveying freedom, wonder, and possibility. When Carl's house begins to float, the cinematography soars with it. The camera pans upward in sweeping, majestic movements that invite the audience to look up alongside Carl, sharing his sense of release and exhilaration. This contrast in visual language mirrors the narrative arc, reinforcing character development through visual cues. Color palettes throughout Up also serve as an essential storytelling tool. The film starts with a muted, almost dreary cityscape in shades of gray and brown, reflecting Carl's lonely and stagnant life. As the story moves into the vibrant jungle, the colors explode into vivid greens, blues, and bright yellows, symbolizing growth, renewal, and adventure. This use of color not only enhances the visual appeal but also subconsciously influences the viewer's emotional experience, mirroring Carl's transformation from grumpy, recluse to engaged adventurer. Another notable stylistic choice lies in the character designs themselves. Carl's square-shaped, blocky features and stiff movements visually communicate his rigid personality and emotional guardedness. In contrast, Russell's rounder, softer features and energetic expressions embody youthfulness and openness. This deliberate contrast not only aids storytelling but subtly informs the audience's perceptions of each character before they even speak. The exaggerated but nuanced expressions, coupled with smooth animation, allow the characters to convey complex emotions with clarity and charm. Sound design in Up plays an equally critical role in shaping the film's atmosphere and emotional resonance. From the chirping of birds in the jungle to the creaking of Carl's old house as it lifts off the ground, every sound is meticulously crafted to create a believable, immersive world. The use of diegetic sounds, those that occur naturally within the story's environment, grounds the fantastical elements, making the extraordinary seem tangible and real. For example, the popping and fluttering sounds of the balloons add a whimsical texture, reinforcing the magical realism of the floating house without ever feeling artificial. Michael Giacchino's musical score is a masterstroke that complements every scene, elevating the emotional beats with precision and heart. His theme, introduced in the opening montage, returns throughout the film in various forms, sometimes playful and light, other times slow and mournful, mirroring Carl's emotional journey. The score employs a mixture of orchestral instruments and solo piano, crafting melodies that feel personal and intimate, almost like a lullaby or a cherished memory. This musical continuity provides cohesion, linking the film's diverse moments and grounding the audience in Carl's internal world. Editing choices further enhance the storytelling's rhythm and tone. The film's pacing expertly balances moments of quiet reflection with bursts of action and humor. Scenes flow smoothly from one to another, avoiding abrupt cuts, which helps maintain the immersive experience. For example, transitions between Carl's city life and the lush jungle are handled with gentle dissolves and sweeping camera movements, inviting viewers to accompany him on his journey rather than simply watch it unfold. This fluidity in editing also allows comedic timing to land naturally, whether it's Doug's joyful interruptions or Russell's earnest attempts at helping. The director's vision is also evident in the film's inventive use of visual metaphors. The balloons lifting the house symbolize not just Carl's literal journey, but also the lifting of emotional burdens. The house itself, as a character, moves through the air and landscape as a symbol of Carl's attachment to his past and his memories with Ellie. The film's final act, where Carl releases the house to the skies, is a visually poetic moment that uses lighting and camera focus to convey release and renewal without a single word spoken. Pete Docter's direction also brings a careful balance of humor and pathos, ensuring that the film appeals to both children and adults. The comedic timing, the warmth in character interactions, and the delicate handling of heavier themes like grief all reveal a directorial hand that understands the power of subtlety and emotional honesty. The visual storytelling reinforces this balance. Laughter bubbles up naturally from the characters' expressions and movements, while quieter scenes invite reflection and empathy. Additionally, Up's animation style manages to feel both timeless and modern. While utilizing the latest in CGI technology, the film avoids hyperrealism in favor of a stylized aesthetic that enhances emotional clarity and accessibility. This choice ensures that the film's emotional moments are front and center, allowing audiences to connect with characters on a deeply human level despite the fantasy setting. When diving into the magic of Up, it's impossible not to notice how much the chemistry between the voice actors profoundly enriches the characters and, by extension, the story itself. Though an animated film, Up hinges heavily on the warmth and authenticity of its performances, which bring a distinct humanity to its whimsical world. Edward Asner, who voices Carl Fredricksen, delivers a nuanced portrayal that perfectly captures the complexity of a man grappling with loss, loneliness, and rediscovery. His voice, gruff yet tender, adds layers to Carl that resonate deeply, and it's easy to feel the character's stubbornness soften with every heartfelt exchange. Opposite Asner, Jordan Nagai as Russell brings vibrant energy and innocence. Their performances play off each other with a natural give and take, even though they recorded their lines separately, as is common in animation. The production team went to great lengths to ensure their chemistry felt genuine, often having Asner and Nagai rehearse together or share insights about their characters' relationship. This effort shines through in the final product. The warmth, occasional frustration, and ultimately sincere affection between Carl and Russell feel earned, never forced. It's a testament to the power of voice acting when paired with thoughtful direction and character development. Bob Peterson's portrayal of Doug, the lovable talking dog, introduces comic relief without undermining the emotional weight of the story. His cheerful voice and enthusiastic delivery complement Asner's more stoic tone, creating a dynamic that lightens the narrative while reinforcing themes of loyalty and companionship. The chemistry among these three core voices creates a vibrant dynamic that keeps audiences engaged and emotionally invested. Behind the scenes, the recording sessions reportedly fostered a collaborative atmosphere. Edward Asner, a veteran actor known for his dedication, brought a wealth of experience and a deep understanding of Carl's character. Jordan Nagai, a young newcomer at the time, was encouraged to bring his natural curiosity and youthful spirit into the role, which added an authentic freshness to Russell. Director Pete Docter often emphasized creating a space where actors could explore their roles freely, resulting in performances that felt spontaneous and heartfelt. The animators also worked closely with the voice actors, often drawing inspiration from their recordings to shape facial expressions and movements. This blend of vocal performance and visual nuance helped bridge the gap between voice acting and animation, making characters feel like living beings rather than simply drawings. Another interesting dynamic unfolded around the character of Charles Muntz, voiced by Christopher Plummer. Plummer's commanding voice lent the character a sinister gravitas that deepened the story's conflict. Although his role is smaller in terms of screen time, Muntz's presence looms large, and Plummer's performance ensures the villain is both menacing and tragic. This contrast enhances the emotional complexity of the narrative, further enriched by the strong performances of the main cast. Audience reactions to Up upon its release were overwhelmingly positive, reflecting how well these performances and character dynamics translated on screen. From children enchanted by Russell's enthusiasm to adults moved by Carl's journey, the film found a wide and diverse audience. Many viewers remarked on the film's ability to balance humor and heart, crediting the actors' performances as key to this blend. The emotional weight of the opening montage, in particular, sparked a deep connection, with many fans sharing personal stories of how the sequence touched their own experiences with love and loss. Critics praised Up for its mature themes and rich character portrayals, often highlighting the voice cast's contributions. Edward Asner's performance was singled out for bringing authenticity to an elderly character without resorting to stereotypes. Similarly, Jordan Nagai's naturalism and sincerity were lauded as refreshingly genuine for a child's role in animation. This critical acclaim helped solidify Up's place as not just a children's movie but a film with universal appeal. Fan engagement with Up has remained strong over the years. The chemistry between Carl and Russell, in particular, inspired countless fan discussions, artworks, and even cosplay. Many fans cite the relationship as a key reason the film resonates beyond its initial viewing, appreciating how the characters' bond evolves realistically and tenderly. The film's emotional moments, comedic beats, and memorable quotes continue to be shared and celebrated within fan communities, proving the lasting impact of the performances. On the production side, the collaborative spirit extended beyond the actors. The Pixar team embraced an environment where creativity flourished, encouraging input from animators, writers, and voice actors alike. This synergy is evident in the film's seamless blend of story, performance, and visual artistry. Behind-the-scenes anecdotes reveal moments when improvisation by voice actors led to changes in animation or dialogue, reflecting a flexible creative process that valued authentic emotion over rigid scripting. For instance, Edward Asner's portrayal inspired the animators to emphasize Carl's subtle facial expressions, giving the character a quiet depth that words alone couldn't capture. Similarly, Jordan Nagai's spontaneous delivery of certain lines led to slight tweaks in Russell's body language, making his enthusiasm feel more genuine and relatable. These small but significant collaborations contributed to a final product that feels alive and deeply human. The set dynamics, although virtual in the animation process, echoed this spirit of teamwork. Voice recording sessions became spaces where actors and directors explored character motivations and emotional beats together. This collaborative atmosphere fostered trust and allowed actors to push boundaries, enriching their performances. Audience screenings and premieres also shaped the film's evolution. Test audiences responded enthusiastically to the chemistry between characters, encouraging the filmmakers to lean further into the emotional core of the story. Feedback influenced subtle adjustments in pacing and dialogue that sharpen the impact of key scenes, illustrating how audience reactions can feed back into the creative process to enhance storytelling. When considering the legacy of Up, it's clear that this film transcended the typical boundaries of animated cinema to leave an indelible mark not only on its genre but on the broader landscape of filmmaking and popular culture. Since its release, Up has become more than just a beloved story. It stands as a symbol of how animation can tackle profound themes with sensitivity and creativity, reshaping expectations and inspiring both creators and audiences alike. At the heart of Up's influence is its masterful blend of emotional depth and adventurous spirit. Prior to Up, animated films often leaned heavily into comedy or fantasy escapism, sometimes shying away from tackling complex human experiences such as grief, aging, and personal loss in a way that felt authentic to all ages. Up boldly ventured into this territory, proving that animated storytelling could be a powerful medium for exploring life's bittersweet realities without sacrificing humor or wonder. This approach encouraged a new wave of animated films and studios to embrace mature, layered narratives, expanding the artistic possibilities of the genre. Filmmakers and animators worldwide have cited Up as a source of inspiration for balancing heartfelt storytelling with technical innovation. The film's use of visual metaphors, such as the floating house symbolizing emotional baggage and liberation, showcased how symbolism could be woven into mainstream animation in subtle yet impactful ways. Its narrative structure, intertwining poignant personal history with exhilarating adventure, set a precedent for animated stories to be both intellectually engaging and emotionally accessible. This storytelling style has echoed through subsequent Pixar releases and other studios, influencing how characters' internal journeys are reflected in the external world of the film. Technologically, Up pushed the boundaries of what CGI animation could achieve, particularly in rendering complex environments like the lush, dynamic jungle. The film's detailed textures, realistic lighting, and fluid character animations raised the bar for visual storytelling, inspiring advancements that continue to influence animation pipelines today. Beyond its technical achievements, Up demonstrated how technology could serve storytelling first, rather than overshadow it, reinforcing the idea that emotional truth remains paramount regardless of the tools used. On the cultural front, Up embedded itself deeply into the collective consciousness. Its iconic opening montage has been widely celebrated as one of the most moving sequences in cinematic history, frequently cited in discussions about the emotional power of animation. The film's memorable characters, Carl, Russell, Doug, have become cultural touchstones, referenced and parroted across media, merchandise, and even inspiring real-world events such as charity fundraisers and adventure clubs themed around its spirit of exploration. The image of a house lifted by thousands of colorful balloons has become instantly recognizable, symbolizing hope, adventure, and the courage to move forward despite loss. Awards and milestones further cemented Up's place in film history. The movie garnered critical acclaim, including winning 2 Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score, among numerous other accolades. These honors validated its artistic ambitions and reinforced the viability of emotionally complex stories within mainstream animation. Moreover, Up was the first animated film to open the Cannes Film Festival, a prestigious milestone that signaled the growing respect and recognition for animated films on the global stage. The film's legacy also includes its impact on audiences of all ages. Many viewers have shared how Up encouraged conversations about aging, family, and the importance of embracing change. Its themes of friendship and reconciliation resonate universally, fostering empathy and reflection long after the credits roll. Educators and therapists have even incorporated the film into their work, using its narrative to help discuss difficult emotions in accessible ways. Over time, Up has remained relevant precisely because it speaks to timeless human experiences. Its exploration of holding on and letting go, the search for meaning in later life, and the beauty found in unexpected companionship continue to touch hearts across generations. Unlike many films that fade as trends shift, Up endures because it connects on a fundamental emotional level, inviting viewers to see themselves in its characters and find hope in their journeys. In the evolving landscape of cinema, where franchises and sequels often dominate, Up stands out as a testament to original storytelling with depth and heart. Its success challenged studios to invest in stories that are not just entertaining but meaningful, proving that audiences crave narratives that inspire both laughter and tears. The film's influence can be seen in the increasing number of animated features that explore complex emotional themes, reflecting a broader cultural shift towards valuing mental health and emotional intelligence in storytelling.